Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Ahmed Mion. Today, I'm joined by two very special guests, two of my close friends, Marshall Amores and Brandon DiGregorio. And the reason we're doing this bonus episode is to talk about The Last of Us Part 2. I think I'm speaking for all three of us when I say this game's story is something to behold and something that needs to be talked about. And it goes without saying that if you have not completed this game, please do not listen to this episode yet. Finish the game first, then come back to this, because we will be spoiling everything. So this is your chance to jump out now. Okay, so that being said, Marshall, Brandon, just I don't know where to even start with this game, but I guess we can just go with overall impressions first, and then jump into specific story beats.
Real quick,
Yeah.
I had this conversation a long time ago with my dad, and we were talking about, I guess we're just talking about cinematic experiences where you're like, oh my God, that was a crazy movie. And he was telling me when he saw A New Hope, when it was like 79 or however, it was a long time ago, multiple presidents ago. And he said that after the movie was finished, he and everybody else in the audience just sat there, not because they wanted to watch the credits, because their heads exploded and they didn't know what was happening. And as the credits were rolling, their mouths were ajar, and that was 30 plus years ago, whatever. I felt like that playing this. I finished it at like 3 a.m. You finished it at 5:57 a.m. last Tuesday. I remember you texted me. Overall experiences, and this is not being hyperbolic. This is like an objective, reasonable response to this. It's hands down like the greatest story in a video game, and dare I say it, like it's better than a lot of movies. I'll be real with you, because
and just sort of following up on that, I think we've talked about this a little before, Marshall, but I feel like this game, with the narrative that it told and the way it told it, is going to push narrative design for video games as a whole forward. I think it's just so far above everything else that's out in terms of how it tells its story and how it gets you invested and how it just breaks your heart. I think it's going to set a standard for the years to come.
It has. Seriously, it's been It's been almost a week for you since you beat it. It's been a few days for me. Honestly, try playing any other game. And then where is my complex character development, moral quandaries? Like, what game makes you even say the word moral quandary and actually mean it?
Actually mean it, yeah. I guess, yeah, that's a really good point. Because there's so many games with Mass Effect has moral choices, but at the end of the day, compared to this game, I feel like it's just surface level. But really quick, Brandon, I want to get your initial thoughts first.
Oh yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with that. I think this might be the best piece of interactive media that I've just ever played, and they make you care about the characters so much in the first one too, and that goes for any movies, a lot of books even. The characters are just so powerful, and that they bring it to this heartbreaking conclusion that people weren't sure that they could top, but they totally did. I trust Naughty Dog implicitly with whatever they do at this point, and yeah, I'd say it's definitely my favorite game. It's so good, the story is so good that I forget to mention how awesome the gameplay is too. The gameplay is phenomenal. They have some of the best physical puzzles that I've seen, and just the new stuff they added, so on point.
It's not just the boards making little bridges, or what was or a pallet of wood because Ellie can't swim.
What's really funny is, did you guys notice in the flashback with Ellie and Joel, when they go to the museum, right? There was a section where they get Joel pushes Ellie into some water, right? And then you can actually find one of those wooden paddles. So, I'm not even kidding. From the first game, and Ellie's like, "Hey, Joel, you want to push me around on this?" And Joel goes, "Kiddo, those days are long over," or something like that. Really? And I thought that was such a cool Easter egg. Neither of you guys found that?
No, that's awesome.
See, that's another reason I love this game. It's chock full of such small details that mean so much to you as the player that are completely missable. Like, they're little, like, treats for you to find if you, like, scour the areas.
Imagine how many people missed Take On Me.
Yeah, that's okay.
I missed it the first time.
You missed it the first time? Yeah, so
you missed
that. Yeah, Brandon missed it apparently. Yeah.
I missed it the first time, and then this playthrough I saw it. I was like, how did I possibly not see this?
That's like top 3 most beautiful moments in this game, like easily.
It is.
Yes, hold on, because Emmett, you and I talked about that. Remember, because she was gonna do like the Pearl Jam one,
the one that Joel sang.
Dude, yeah. Every time they start that, it's
So the amazing part about the Take On Me thing, and just to reiterate what we spoke about before, Marshall, was that when she picked up the guitar, when you pick up the guitar in the music shop, right, and she starts playing If I Ever Were to Lose You, she starts singing that, and then Dina comes in and she's like, what is that? And then Ellie goes, oh, it's nothing, because that song is specifically between her and Joel, like that is for them, right? So then Ellie breaks out, this beautiful rendition of Take On Me that just makes you melt. It's just so beautiful. Oh my god.
Dude. So I mean, like, I play music. I feel like everybody on this right now does. So learning that song right now, like, I'm almost done with it. Just like to be able to play it the same way that she does.
Mm-hmm.
It's super good.
Yeah.
Did you ever try to mess around with the guitar in the game too?
People on YouTube who like Johnny Cat, or I mean, technically it's 9 Inch Nails first, Trent Reznor, give respect where respect is due, who did Hurt. And they there's on YouTube, there are videos of Ellie when you could practice in the theater, just pick up the guitar and play, and people are playing full on songs. Like, I think I saw
it's crazy.
Metallica song, and it's amazing. What game lets you do that? And it's not just strumming. There's picking. And it's all correct. It's all correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one aspect. Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say that, that's one aspect of this game, who knew we'd get creative stuff from this, narrative, story-driven game? You have people, having Ellie perform full songs and, them providing, the VO over the guitar playing. It's just, what a neat little present that came out of this game.
Neat little presents. This is going to just, change the shift, but because, Am and I previously, talked about this, and I'm going to just, for a minute, I need to talk about my ending. My interpretation of the ending totally changed. Because I've been thinking about this non-stop. So, after the game finished, so I was playing a lot of it while I was working, and I'm generally pretty stressed, but it's a good stress because my job is pretty intense. And I thought that it was the stressors of my job that was putting me in a negative mood. And then I realized, oh my God, it's the conflicts within myself that have been created because of this game that's making me, be adversely affected, or positively, because it made me think about things. When the game concludes, the guitar's there and you see Ellie in the foreground, going off whatever her adventure is. And when the game first ended, I was like, oh, yeah, she's going to find Dina. Everything's going to be okay. And I was just the person in me hoping, there is hope, right? And this isn't a 180, but I've been reading reviews and, not with just Dr. Uckman, our God and Savior, but, other just people's interpretations. And I remember one thing that stuck out is that somebody was like, she's 19. She's not, 45 and this is it. So I'm thinking, I don't know about you guys, but I've been in serious relationships before, multiple years, some that haven't. And somebody said, they were like, it's just having something really good, a great relationship, and then it just ends. The world isn't over. You're still going to live, but it feels like your world is over, but there's still something to go on. So I was just thinking about the ending. I'm like, Dina wasn't it. She had Ellie has her whole life ahead of her, whether it's going to be good or bad, whether she dies 5 miles out. This game is messing me up, man. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm really stressed out right now thinking about it.
So yeah, the thing with Ellie is, like you mentioned, like she has her whole life ahead of her, and does she? Like in this horrible, horrible world that she inhabits, like, and yeah, she like I think the main point of the ending was to show that Ellie has essentially lost everything, and it's very sad to see, and it's perfectly captured by her trying to play the guitar, trying to play, if I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself.
The lyrics, I'm gonna cry. Do you want me to? Yeah. I'm gonna be totally crying, dude. Don't do it. Don't make me do this.
And then she lost her fingers in that final confrontation with Abby. She can't play the song. That song is her only remaining connection to Joel. So I think when she leaves the guitar behind and leaves, that's her saying goodbye to. That's basically her putting everything else behind her and looking forward to something brand new.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right about that. I think it's a very human impulse to want her to go back to Jackson and make up with Dina, because we saw the farm and she has such an idyllic life, and we're like, oh, I just really want these characters to be happy after the hell they went through. But there's no way, after everything they went, that they can possibly do that.
When you were first on the farm, both of you, like, tell me honestly, like, I remember when I went outside for the first time and you're carrying JJ and you could just sit there. You could sit on the tractor.
Yeah.
And the button that prompts you is like leave or something like that. I remember I didn't hit the button. I was like, I'm just going to sit here and just hang out.
Gorgeous.
I definitely sat there for like a solid minute or two. And, speaking of that farm, it was so beautiful. But like, as I was playing it, I was like, this can't be the ending because it doesn't fit. Like, like I want more than anything for the game to have ended there, like just for the sake of Ellie, like I wanted her to have some semblance of a happy ending, but just the way these characters have been set up and the way this world is, that couldn't happen. And so then when Tommy finally comes into the house and he's like, I found her. And then just speaking of Tommy for a second, Tommy, I feel like has lost almost more than everyone. Yeah, he lost everything.
You can't even walk. What's her name? Left him? Like
Maria, yeah.
Revenge, how negatively it impacts people. Like, he was the guy at the beginning of the game, and it's his brother who was like, I don't know if we should do this. And then at the end, he's hobbling in and being like, you made a promise. You said you were going to do it. And you're like, oh my God, it stripped you of everything. This 19-year-old girl, you're going to make her go down the same path. You're like 50 years old and are basically dead. What are you doing?
I felt, like you feel so much pity for him, because like he's crippled now too after what happened with Abby, and he's like he says something like, "Well, I can't go," and I'm like, I feel so bad for you, man. Like I don't like. It was such a hard thing to watch, like it just
ate him alive and spit him out as just nothing. Like everyone who cared about it left him.
Yeah. But yeah, like going back to, I think what ties this whole game together, that song, right? I mean, if I ever were to lose you, Ellie loses Joel and she loses herself, she loses everything. She becomes a monster, she's the most evil. She does the most evil in this game out of any other character, which is crazy.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what I love. That's what's so good about how they twist the characters around too, because you're struck by this huge grief in the beginning, obviously, with Joel dying and that intense. Yeah. But then throughout the game, you just see like the moral degradation and just like death of Ellie, basically. And she kills a pregnant woman, and it just comes to such a head.
Because like I remember we were talking about this, and remember, so like I remember as soon as, well, first of all, this is another thing I spoke with. Like, at the beginning of the game, I was so, like, just shaken and upset. Also, it's because of lack of sleep, because I was playing the game. And, I mean, when Joel died, I was like, what? This iconic character that I love? And then, like, I was on the warpath. When it was me and I'm killing the wolves, I was playing like a psycho. I was, like, aiming for legs and, like, burning dogs alive. That's not me. But, like, it took me into that place. And then as soon as you make that crazy switch, and you start learning about these people. Like,
I know.
It really messed me up when Ellie kills Mel, because as soon as she stabbed her, and before, because when she stabs her, she like falls on the ground, and then her jacket opens and you see the baby. I remember as soon as she stabbed her, and like the whoever they did the not motion capture, what's it when they get the actual
facial capture,
whatever it is, because I remember her eyes get big, and the actress like had like big eyes to begin with, windows to the soul. And I remember, like, as soon as she got stabbed, and she's like, I was like, wait, what? And I had my own mini flashback to the first time you're playing as Abby, and Abby's like running through the snow, and she's like, oh, he put a effing baby in her, and I was like, oh god, is she pregnant? And then like a jacket opened, and she was pregnant, and I was like, oh no, like, it's
yeah,
dude, yeah.
Sorry, man.
Oh my god. Well, there's one point that I recently read in some article that was reviewing the game too, that was about, how most games there's sort of a disconnect between when you're actually playing as the character versus, the story and the character itself, between gameplay. Yeah. In Uncharted, you kill like countless people, right? But you're also Drake, so you're like this happy-go-lucky dude. But in this game, they really made the experience of you killing people be very much in tune with the character, because they're so bloodthirsty. Like, I just thought they closed that gap really well.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's like when Joel first happened. And by the way, maybe we should talk about that for a little bit, because
add some structure.
Yeah, like, my god, like that. I remember when it happened, I felt like someone had just clubbed me in the head. Like, I was just stunned. I think they did such a good job in that scene, right? Because, like, it happens, and then from Ellie's point of view, everything sort of just, like, goes white, like, there's, like, a screeching noise, and she can't really even hear anything, and it's just, like, she's in shock, like, and I felt like that, too. I, like, couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then immediately all my expectations for this game went out the window, because I thought, okay, maybe, like, Dina gets kidnapped or something, and you and Joel have to team up and save her.
That's
How dumb and pedestrian does that sound now, like, after having played this game?
Right? I'm so glad they didn't do that. And they even fabricated a Joel in their
trailers.
Yeah. I felt like such a facile human being when that happened. When Jesse's like, like, he puts his arm around, like, they
got it good, man.
Yeah.
I really feel bad for anybody that did have, like, because you were telling me, because I ran into Brandon last night, and he was telling me how he unfortunately saw the leaks, and
it was a comment too. It was a comment on like a video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Comment sections
ruined it for me. Yeah.
Never do that.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah, that's how I learned that Arthur Morgan died in Red Dead Redemption 2. Somebody's like, "Oh, it sucks that Arthur dies," and I was like, I mean, I knew it was going to happen.
Dude, like, why? Why upvote that?
I didn't know it was TB, so that was good.
But to kind of go off that little bit, like, there's so much to this game. Like, I feel like even if you had Joel's death spoiled, in the grand scope of things, that's like nothing.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a slow burn.
That is the impetus for the rest of the game. Like, that one event sets the rest of the characters on their path, but like where those characters go, that's the real story, like, so yeah, it sucks that spoiler was out there, but if you're not playing this game because Joel dies, that's like the last thing you should worry about when you play this game.
Everybody here, like, I'm 26, I'll be 27 in a month. You guys are like 26, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, when you were 19, what were you doing? Do you think you could, like, can you live through this? 19.
Yeah.
19.
And so, like, and that's another important thing to bring up. She's 19, right? So she goes through all this trauma. She still isn't, like, fully emotionally established, right, as a 19-year-old. She goes through all this trauma. There's no safety nets for her. There are no psychologists or therapists in this world. She just has to deal with the trauma of losing her dad in the most brutal way imaginable, mind you, like tortured to death in front of her eyes. She has to deal with that in any which way she can in a brutal post-apocalyptic world. right? So when you take all those factors into consideration, yes, it makes sense that Ellie goes on a murderous rampage and kills everyone.
Yeah. She's young, impulsive. She lives in this crazy world. It's like, remember that scene when they're entering Seattle where she and Dina are on horseback and they're talking about the first time they ever killed someone? And he was like 10 years old or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like killing is so normal in that world that maybe it is kind of a rational response to just go on a rampage. Like, I'm going to kill every one of these motherfuckers that killed my dad in front of my eyes. You know, It's like, yeah, I guess I can see that.
And I feel like we're everything we've talked about this far is only one half of the equation, right? Oh, we haven't even mentioned Abby yet.
What? Hold on. So I've also had changing thoughts about her. Okay. So when I first started playing with her, like, I really disliked it. Of course, that's the whole point, you know. Yeah. Neil and what's your name?
Something Haley Gross.
Haley Gross. God bless her for her talent.
Yeah.
You know, this like narrative 180, like, yeah, that's a gamble. That's a AAA gamble. That's a gamble.
That's gutsy.
So she, like, that character was the manifestation of so many things that could have been for Ellie. Like I loved that she was like CrossFit shredded because she had turned her body into the physical embodiment of her goal. Yeah. And her goal, like, in pursuit of that, I mean, of course, she became super shredded, which is great. But, like, you know, she lost everything. The victory was so hollow, you know. But, like, just seeing her be, like, just this embodiment of revenge, and then, like, Ellie not being able to understand that this Goliath of a woman is, like, this is what happens. Like, you're going to lose it all. Like, I don't know, man. Like, that disconnect made me so sad because when Ellie's finally fighting her, like, that's her counterpart in so many ways.
Yeah.
You know?
They're two sides of the same coin. Like, their story is the same. They're just at different places in their journey.
Yeah.
You know? They're at different places in their journey. At the
get a West Virginia coin?
What's that?
You can get a West Virginia quarter.
Yeah, I found the West Virginia quarter. Yeah.
It was
what I was gonna say, like, at the beginning of the game, Abby's at the end of her journey. She gets her revenge.
Right. Yes.
Everyone, like, her friends are all like, you know, it was not, you know, a happy moment, you know, like,
they don't like her though afterwards.
And
like,
Abby, yeah, like, she basically loses her friends, and then Abby afterwards, she has no purpose, right? And that's where the brilliant relationship with, you know, Yara and Lev comes in, and we can get into that in a little bit. But, like, Abby has nothing and essentially has to find new meaning in her life because what she thought would fulfill her did the opposite. You know, she had nothing left afterwards. Abby at the beginning of the game is at that point, at that point, which Ellie reaches at the end of the game, you know? So that's why when Ellie finds her and is like, you have to fight me, and Abby's like, I am not doing this, because she knows, like, A, obviously she doesn't want to leave Lev for dead, but, like, B, like, she knows that even if Ellie does this, she'll be worse off than she was before because she's been through it all.
That's kindness. That's like some weird indirect kindness, because, like, of course Abby was stripped of her dignity. Like, she lost all of her body weight, her hair, like that beautiful ponytail, which was rendered amazingly in terms of, like, physics, like how it's bouncing around, like,
yeah,
what? Yeah. But yeah, like, she's getting it ready in the boat, and she's like, no, we're not going to do this. And then Ellie puts the knife to Lev's throat, and it's like, she's like compelled by some otherworldly force, like, we're going to do this. When she put the knife to Lev's neck, I was like, it's that Batman thing where it's like, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I was like, yeah. Ellie, what are you doing?
No, at the end of the game, Ellie is absolutely the villain.
She's the antagonist.
Yeah.
She, like, basically followed Joel's shoes, but for absolutely no noble purpose, really, at all. So she became worse than him in the very end.
Yeah, that's so true. Like,
Joel was motivated by love, you know, and she was just motivated by pure hatred. And at the very end, I feel like she has, like, one shred of empathy for Abby because she sees Lev and she thinks of, you know, Joel and whatnot. And so she finally gets it and lets them go. But, like, I don't know if that moment, like, redeems everything that she's done. In fact, I don't think it does at all.
No.
It's like, I'm glad, it's a good thing that happened, because if she didn't do that, that character would be like gone. There would be like no more Ellie.
Yeah.
There would be DLC. It's a start though, and that's like, I think, like the silver lining, because it's like her last conversation. Like, this is another thing I brought up. Like, I've had like deaths in my family. Like, it's not chill. It sucks. And so one of the things you always dwell on is like, how did I leave that person? What is the last, not words, what's the last word I said? Was it like a pronoun? Like, you just dwell on these random things, right? But ultimately, whenever you lose somebody, the last thing you think about is, how did we feel the last time we were with each other? So it was such like it was still very sad. You're going to hell, because I was like, like, just like snot was coming out, like, oh.
So
God.
Yes, that scene I think was the most emotional in the game. But that moment, yes, that line, yes. But even more so, I was even more emotional at the following line, where Joel starts crying.
Yeah,
in that scene.
And
that hurt bad.
And where he tells Ellie, like, when Ellie's like on his case again, like, you should have let me die out there, like, my life would have had meaning. And Joel says, something to the effect of, if I could go back to that moment, I would do it all again every single time. Because that's how much I love you. Like, that's what you mean to me. And what's amazing about all of that is, so when she's killing Abby, right? Like, when Abby's about to die, she's choking her under the water, and she flashes back to Joel. It's that scene, right? It's where Joel's on.
Yeah.
No, quick. It's only like a split second. Like,
yes, you're right. It's a split second, but it's from that scene, right? And I think the reason that is that some connection finally gets made in her mind, where she's like, oh, that's why Joel did what he did to save me. I'm literally doing the same thing right now, but for no reason. I'm not saving anyone's life right now, but I think, yeah, it's selfish. And I think that's why she lets Abby go, because she realizes Joel did this for me. It was not selfish. He did it for me, and I think in that moment she realizes, because she's essentially doing the same thing. I'd like to think at that moment she forgives Joel and realizes, what happened.
And like, another thing, like, this is like my line of thought. Like, when she let her go, like, I was telling you about how, like, there's usually like a prompt, like, hit square whenever you're in a confrontation. Like, I remember hitting it, and then I just stopped and I dropped the controller, because I was like, honestly, so this is something more I thought about. I was like, I don't want my last experience of this game that I'm just like, I go against how I feel, because they've already made me fight Ellie. I hated that. Now I'm fighting Abby, and I don't want to do it. So I dropped the controller. But lo and behold, Ellie is still strangling her. And I was like, dude, I don't want my image of this beloved character to be her just losing everything and killing. Like, I don't want it. And then I'm so glad that my interpretation of her letting her go is that, like, she didn't want that moment, that addiction, because it literally is a drug addiction. It's the same concept, just transported to like a much more unfortunate avenue of death. And she didn't want that moment or that element of her life to define her, because she's 19. She has her life ahead of her. She doesn't want the rest of her existence to be founded upon selfish greed and just hate, like all of these negative emotions.
Yeah.
She wants to have a choice, some choice, even if everything else is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair interpretation. You mentioned Abby, when you fight Ellie as Abby, after Abby's section of the game. And I will say, personally, for me, that section was the most difficult section of a video game I've ever had to play. Like, I almost could not go through with it. Because at a certain point, you fight Ellie, right? And then at a certain point, you're essentially you're beating her to death. You're strangling her. and her face is all bloody and she's like barely alive. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this game making me do to this character who I care so much about? This character who through the first game I formed some kind of symbolic father-daughter relationship with, you know? I don't have any kids, but like I had that, I had that bond with Ellie in the first game, and now I'm essentially strangling what used to be my child.
That's how it felt. It's horrible. And like the fact that the graphics are so good, like you can see
every iota of pain
in her eyes, in her face, because like capillary refill. Like she looked. I thought like I was witnessing a human being die, and I was like, this is so uncomfortable. I do not like it. This is ruining my Wednesday. Like, or technically Thursday or whatever time of day. Like, it was horrible. It was traumatic for the player. That's why it's having these feelings. Like, that's what we're talking about it, because it's not like you're just like Drake and you're mowing somebody down, or you're like Big Boss and you're like, it's not that. It's like, it's a real grounded, visceral feeling of love, hate, and death almost. Like, these subjects are real person. It's too palpable.
Yeah, like I don't know of any other developer who could take their main characters and put them in positions like that, you know, like, and I think that's why this game is so powerful, is because Naughty Dog, like, they're not bound by those constraints, obviously, you know. They're like, okay, we're going to kill off one of our main characters and put the other one through such hell that she's at, like, the most miserable, lowest point of her life by the time this game ends. And you're going to like it as an experience.
Other character.
Yeah.
The other murderer.
And we're going to make you empathize with the person who killed the protagonist from the first game.
Right. As soon as you started playing as, like, Abby, like, for real, I was like, they're trying to do a Thanos, like,
I know.
I get it. And then as it kept going on, I was like, wow, that's not a good comparison. This is a whole nother remember when I was talking with you and I was like, I didn't know how long I was going to play as Abby. Like, I thought they were going to do like a few, like, you know, maybe see Mal doing something nice, something charitable, to give some food to somebody. I'm like, okay, I like him. And then you open your pack.
Yeah.
And there's like the empty slots for like the skill trees. And you're like, oh my God, am I gonna have? And then you see the guns, and you're like, oh my God, there's so many upgrades. Oh no, I'm in this for the long haul.
Right, Amit, I love that you texted me that exactly when that happened. You're like, what is going on? Like, Abby has a skill tree. This is insane. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and just talking about that specific moment. That's the literal climax of the game, right? Like, that's the most intense moment of the entire thing. Abby has cornered Ellie after Ellie's murdered all of her friends, and Abby's about to shoot her. And then you cut away for another, like, 10-hour segment where you play as Abby. It's like, what?
I'm getting a migraine from all the emotions I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
Seriously, what medium? There hasn't been a film, a book, a song, and music is like it's my jam, baby. Like, there's no other form of expression that has made me dwell on its contents than this.
Well, I think that's because it is a video game, because of the interactivity, right? You were in those moments. That's why it's so much more powerful, and that's the power of our medium here. And I think, like, that's why, you know, Naughty Dog and co deserve so much credit, because they're pushing that forward and being like, this is our strength. This is something that no other form of media could do. This is something unique to us, and we're showcasing it.
Dude, for real, like, I was really excited for, like, Ghost of Tsushima, and now I'm just like, oh God. And now I'm going to be comparing it. I'm like, oh man.
All right. It's like I'm not ready to move on.
Yeah, from a narrative point of view, I don't see this game being matched probably till The Last of Us Part 3, honestly.
Look, so I have a love-hate relationship with, like, BioWare. So I know that they're gonna, like, you know, they're eventually gonna do another Dragon Age. So I was playing through Inquisition again because I was like, you know, why not? You know, I'm gonna get all the the right save states for the next game. I'm really pumped because it's going to happen. And yesterday, I was texting you about like maybe starting a new save. I was like, I'm just going to play it. It's like easy. It's lighthearted. And I I downloaded it. So I've had it downloaded. So I'm like playing it, and I'm like, I can't even enjoy this. I was like, I turned it off and I took a nap. It's not even a bar anymore. They didn't raise a bar. They created a whole new stratosphere, and we're gonna have to try and get in. Like it's like every other game developer, I feel like, is like the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk trying to make an airplane for the first try. You know what I mean? Like, and they're in like a C-130 big cargo ship just flying.
Yeah, they really set a standard for storytelling in a game that will not be satisfying for so long. And what's so great about it too is that, you know, when you describe the original premise to people, it sounds like the most basic premise ever. Like, yeah, it's set in the post-apocalypse. This one girl is immune, you know, father-daughter thing going on here. But honestly, like that whole world is just a backdrop to explore the characters. Like there's absolutely nothing in that world that really propels the story forward. It's just all studying the characters and how they interact with each other, and it's just so emotionally driven. It's so well done.
That's wonderfully put. You know, like the apocalypse is just a backdrop to explore these humans. You know, like that's such a wonderful thing.
It's an accessory. That's what it
is. And I think we would be remiss if we did not mention I think maybe the core relationship of this game being, to me at least, Abby and Lev. You know, like I think Abby and Lev in this game is a direct analog to Joel and Ellie from the first game. You know, they've formed such a strong connection, and they're not family or anything. It's another, like, you know, family is not defined by.
You are my people.
Yeah,
you are
family
my people.
Is not defined by blood in this game, and yeah, that's probably one of my like top lines in this game, if not the top line. You know, like you just see his sister get shot to death. You know, like, and he's a little kid, and he's just been through such trauma. You know, he lost his mom, he lost his sister to the people. You know,
killed his mom.
Yeah, yeah. Lost them to Abby's people, and then he lashes out at her because that's the only thing he can do at that point. That poor kid, you know, like he's like, your people killed my sister, and then she just grabs him and looks him in the eyes like, you are my people.
And it's just, yes, it kills.
Yeah.
And I think like the story between Abby, Yara, and Lev too is that much more powerful because they're on the opposing factions of this horrible war that's been going on for like God knows how long, and they finally find like the humanity in each other, and that is super. They couldn't be more different, you know. Like one is a hyper cultist, whatever they really are, I don't even know, and then one is the wolves. It's just like the military. Like they could not be more diametrically opposed, and yet they come together and like help each other. It's beautiful.
So one thing like I thought of, you know, playing as Abby, and you get to see, you know, the Seraphites, and of course there's like a lot of like, you know, it's definitely just talking about religion and fanaticism and conservatism, stuff like that, and that's a whole different bag, you know. But learning just the adages and like the sayings, like some of them were very beautiful, like the you know, the Seraphite scripture was really pretty, you know, sometimes. And then just like comparing it with like what Abby's father said, you look for the light, you know, the whole Firefly thing. And then you sympathize and you see not only the wolves and how they want their worldview versus the Seraphites' worldview. And, you know, there's pros and cons, of course, much like any religion versus, I guess, like not a religiously based group of people, like in real life. You just basically everything seems so pointless. I'm like, look, in the game they were literally fighting over territory. There are multiple points where like Owen is like, oh, we're just fighting over this land. And then when you're playing as Abby, you can go to the shrine where like the truce was, where they're supposed to stay on their island, and you're like, dude, the world is over. Why are you fighting over this? The world is done, man. Like, stop it.
It's just,
Stop.
I think from the writer's point of view, like I feel like that's just them trying to tell us how hopeless humanity really is, unfortunately. Like even at the end of the world, we're still at each other's throats. When where maybe if we all banded together and like worked toward a common goal, maybe we could somehow overcome this problem, but that's not what happens. That's not what happens.
I love the wolves saying every time they like bid each other farewell. It's like, may your survival be long, may your death be swift, which is super badass.
Yeah.
But that's also really culty in and of itself. The only reason
exactly,
the firefights are
yes.
so weird is because they don't use technology and have all these old sayings and stuff,
Absolutely, yes.
We use guns and elevators sometimes.
Yeah, except for those exceptions.
Like, you guys are cool with elevators? And Lev's like, yeah, sometimes for the soldiers.
There are exceptions.
Speaking of elevators, how amazing was that section over the city, right? Like the bridge over the city with Abby and Lev, when Abby's, like has to fight over her fear of heights, and it's just this unbelievably high. Like, how did they even find that? It's just mind blowing to me. But like that whole section where you're on the bridge and then you fall into the building and then you fight your way down the building, like what a standout section.
It's an amazing.
I want to hear, Brandon, your interpretation on this, because I remember we were talking about it, like how much thought was given into level design in terms of like storytelling. Because like imagine, I saw somewhere like online, people were talking about how like Ellie's scared of being trapped and she wants like the open road into like freedom and stuff like that. And then Abby's scared of heights and like the unknown beneath her. And I was like, and then like seriously, like that straight up sequence where Abby is straight up confronting her fears, going up and then going down through hell. It's like a Dante's Inferno kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What do you think, dude?
It's amazingly done. Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge how great it is that they added these little things about characters that humanize them immensely. Like, it's always cute how Ellie's collecting the trading cards, and then the parallel to that is, Abby getting the coins because her dad liked them and that she's afraid of heights. It just like instantly brings this humanness into these characters that is just kind of astounding. But yeah, I guess when it comes to that, like, I mean, I guess in a way, Ellie is facing her worst fear too, right? Because she's like utterly alone. There's also something, it's like harkening back to the first game when she was talking to Henry's little brother after he got bit. He asked her what she's afraid of. She says jokingly scorpions. And then, well, I'm afraid of ending up alone and like losing everyone. And that's exactly what happened to her. So she's navigating the world through her worst fear, while Abby at the same time is navigating like what is now her worst fear because, she already got her revenge and everything. So that scene is just super powerful when she's walking across that crane and just falls off and doesn't die though. So she finally kind of like can surpass it in a way. It was just so masterful, dude. I
just have to comment right here. This is why I love talking about this game so much, because every time I talk about it, there's more that's unpacked. Like this game is so dense with storytelling and emotional complexity and like symbolism. There's so much here. It's such a joy to analyze. God,
it's incredible, dude. Oh, what do you guys make of this is kind of we can go back to our previous topic, but just she always has those like butterfly moths that she's drawing in her journal. It's on the guitar. Like, what do you think that symbolizes?
I thought that, so, I mean, I've watched so many YouTube interviews, like taking like every time I take a shower, I have a thing propped up, like watching. And stuff where they're like talking about how like moths are symbolizing like death, or they're attracted to the light. Maybe it's a positive thing. But I don't know. I
like that interpretation.
Yeah, I think so. I watched an interview with Neil Druckmann, and he admitted actually like the moths were just a connection between Joel and Ellie, right? Because
I know. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Right. So like the moth on the guitar, it was Joel's guitar that he gave to Ellie, and then her tattoo and all that. So yeah. So, but like I like in that same interview, Neil Druckmann was like, yeah, I really like all these interpretations coming forward, because like while that's not something we intended from the outset, it's so cool to sort of discover things about the thing he created, like.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I guess now that we've seen like the fallout from Joel's decision at the first game, has that decision changed for either of you guys? You know, like, do you feel differently about that decision now, or is it still kind of the same? You know, because like I'd like to think. I mean, they don't give you a choice for like killing all the doctors and stuff. You know, that's like a very thing, because they want you to think that Joel is like you, but he's not. He's a killer. You know.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when they revisit it and say it's like, okay, well, did he actually just deserve what he got? Because he did kind of choose, in a way, even though he saved her, the most selfish thing you could possibly do in that situation, because you sacrifice every other person in the world to save the only person that you care about.
Hey, let me ask you a real question. In an apocalypse, how many neurosurgeons do you think are going to make it?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about doctors who can set bones. Neurosurgery. Also, how many medical facilities are going to last that are capable of, let me say it again, neurosurgery? He doomed the world. The world. He kind of had it coming, unfortunately.
He did have it coming, but at the same time, you know, I go back to that line at the end of the game. I would do it all again. Yeah. You know, like,
so true, but you have to think from somebody else's perspective.
Yeah, like, from somewhere. Yeah, no, Abby is 100% justified in what she did, which, you know, sucks because we love Joel, we love Ellie, but Abby is 100% justified in what she did. And then some, honestly. Like, Joel actually did doom humanity. Like, they made a point in this game of saying, like, that was their one shot. The one guy who could have done that surgery is now dead. The Fireflies are now essentially just disbanded, although not really.
Santa Barbara, a few hundred.
Yeah. I mean, but the point is, okay, so maybe that could lead into maybe trying to get a cure again for the third game, but I feel like the narrative strength of that moment is that was their one shot and it's gone now, and I don't think it'll ever come back.
I think so too. And the way I interpreted the end when Abby gets captured by the Rattler group, I thought that when they found that Firefly hideout, that was just them trying to capture people to make slaves.
That's what I thought.
That's what I thought too. Like, I didn't think it was real.
Yeah, so I think
fighting the Rattlers, first of all, like, it was cool because Ellie's like got the haircut and the new silence thing, and she's literally like the Terminator. She's like, she's death. I am death becometh. What do we talk about? Like, the guy created the nuclear warhead or whatever his name is. But yeah, when you got there though, like, it was cool. But how just tired were you?
Yeah.
Where you're like, no, stop.
Yeah. Every step Ellie made on that journey to Santa Barbara, I was begging her to turn around, to just stop it. You know, like, just stop it.
Dude, she was like a cheating spouse in the middle of the night. You know, like, in her underwear, like, just like, she's not ready to go, but she's like she's preparing. And then Dina's like waking up. And these are honestly like 19. You're still kind of a child, you know?
Oh,
these
absolutely. You're still
young people. And they're like, if somebody who killed somebody at 8 years old is shocked, then that's pretty damning evidence that what you're doing is morally dubious at best. So, like, it's so draining. It is, like, in the truest sense of the word, draining. Like,
yes, it was exhausting playing that section. I mean, it was exhausting playing the whole game, honestly. Like, it's just, at a certain point, you're like, Ellie, please just let it go and go home. Because, like, after she left the farm, in my mind, 100% I thought she wasn't going to come back. I thought she was dead. I was so shocked to see that she lived at the end. And I'm glad she did, obviously. But, like, I thought as soon as she left that farm, she was basically marching to her death. And can we talk about, like, I feel so bad for Dina. You know, like, I can't really blame her for what she did at the end of the game. You know, she packed up all her stuff and left all of Ellie's stuff there, which I feel like is a firm message to her that, like, this is over and don't come looking for me.
That's why I was talking about, like, long, serious relationships, because sometimes, like, when they end, you're like, it is the end of the world. But then, like, that's why I was like, she's 19. She has so much ahead of her. So, like, that's what okay, I don't know what your feelings or thoughts are, but I personally hated the end of Game of Thrones. And I really, when it was happening, I willed myself to like it. I was like, no.
I was the same.
the fog of battle, the Battle of Winterfell was cool. Like, that's what it would be like. I was trying so hard. I was like, no. Like, this is what we wanted to happen. And then afterwards, like, I hated it. Like, that, oh, God. I don't know where I was going with that.
Okay, I was wondering. It's like, okay, I'm waiting for the tie into the game.
Bring me back, because now I'm just pissed off about Game of Thrones and David Benioff.
So no, I mean we were on the end there with Ellie leaving Dina and losing the one chance she had at happiness. But in this world, like I hope she's going back to Jackson. In an ideal world, she would be going back to Jackson and trying to salvage whatever life she has there, but I don't think she is.
Dude, she's gonna go throw some snowballs at kids. That's what she's gonna do.
I mean, I think honestly at this point, it's a win. I think The Last of Us Part 3 is happening. Like, especially because I told you guys the sales, right? Like, this game sold over 4 million copies in 3 days. It's PlayStation's fastest selling exclusive of all time now, even faster than Spider-Man. This M-rated game about a lesbian hobo murder rampage sold more than Spider-Man.
That's a great way to put that.
That's so true. And you know what's crazy? Like, I didn't have there was no trepidation towards playing as this character. Like, if you have a problem, first of all, playing as like a woman, like, dude.
Oh yeah.
It's
None of those complaints are valid. I'm sorry.
All the complaints, it brought up like the most toxic part of the fan base that was already doomed to hate it. But the fact that they cared so much about it also just is another testament to Naughty Dog's great writing, because they didn't want Joel to die. Yeah, none of us did. Like, that's the point, They wanted us to be heartbroken in that moment. So they're just like enforcing the point without getting it.
How many kids with like dads not in the picture played that game and were like,
oh my god. I didn't even think about that.
Joel died. I called my dad the next day and was like, hey, how's Arizona? How's it going, Dad? I love you.
Yeah.
It's also interesting. Like, I could see them, if they do a part 3, doing another jump ahead like 20 years with Ellie.
I think if they do a part 3, it has to be a sizable jump forward.
Yeah. What can you do though? Because so this is what I was thinking like the other day. Like, for its faults and for its pros and cons, I always thought that Rogue One had like a very genius like little tie-in to the franchise, where like her dad was the guy who designed the Death Star and it answered the Asian question, why was there one place that you could shoot and it would explode? Like, genius way. Like, it was like like liberation, baby. Like, I thought that was so genius. And that's kind of like this game where like, what if the surgeon that you killed, her daughter, like, what a cool hide in, but what would they do? What would they do?
So I will point out, we said the exact same thing at the end of the first one.
I know.
Like,
but come on, man. What would they do?
I mean, clearly we're not writers on the caliber of Neil Druckmann and Haley Gross. Like.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do think the most obvious answer. There's clearly more story to tell with Abby and Lev. Like, they reach the Fireflies at the end, right? Like, symbolized by the main menu screen changing.
Yeah. And it's Catalina, it's Santa Monica.
Yeah.
So they find the Fireflies. Obviously, there's more story there. So, and this is by like mediocre writer coming out, but like maybe the game set 10 years in the future. Let's say, Abby knows Ellie is immune and that she's still out there. Maybe Abby, Lev, and a bunch of other Fireflies go out to find Ellie and try to fix things. Maybe that's the premise of the third game.
Emotionally ready.
That's super interesting too. And then it would be Ellie, because like that would mean her death, right? Like, that's pretty clear from the last one. So it would be her needing to come to terms with like sacrificing herself or running away or something. And
what sucks is Ellie had come to terms with her death, right? She like throughout the whole game, she told Joel like, hey, I was meant to die. But I feel like at the end of this game, she's finally making peace with the fact that she's alive. Yeah. So it'd be even more tragic if she didn't want to die in the third one and then she had to die, like.
Oh, yeah.
Well, another thing that I was always thinking of throughout the game Like, this is one thing that also, like, seriously, like, bringing it back to, like, losing people in your life that I kept thinking of on, like, a serious emotional level. And what game first of all, what game makes me even talk like this? What? But I always thought that throughout the game, and I think this is right, because, I know people with PTSD, stuff like that, from, like, very traumatic events. But the converse of that is, like, when you die, you can be an organ donor, right? And people can receive your cornea. They could receive, your liver or something, like just your organs, right? And there's this thing where people who are organ donor recipients, they can feel survivor's guilt. So they're like, okay, I'm alive. Awesome. Life is great. Somebody died so I could feel anything. And so they feel guilty because somebody had to sacrifice themselves. And so while I was playing the entirety of this game, that's like, I'm sure, at the forefront of, Ellie's cerebral cortex. She's just thinking like, I don't know. I keep bringing back to like the guilt aspect of the game, but it's so like,
no, it's an important aspect, like
it's a huge part, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the reason why she's so mad.
It was robbed.
Yeah. The reason why she can't forgive Joel is that, like, because she's alive, hundreds of thousands of millions of people will die because she's alive. And she could have stopped it, but someone else took that choice away from her. Like.
Right.
What peace can you, I don't want to swear, but what peace can you have? Peace. Even if you're like, I'm going to get revenge. Great. That's amazing and so hard. What peace?
Oh, and speaking of, like her immunity literally doesn't mean anything anymore other than like a tactic for her in battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, there's no doctor. There's no chance of her healing anything. But she doesn't have to worry about infected as much. So it's like
she's hiding it. Like with the tattoo. Oh my god, dude, with the tattoo. Oh, it's a chemical burn. You're like lying to others, you're lying to yourself. There is the only truth that she had throughout the majority of the game is hate. She didn't even know who she was.
So dark and dreary.
She's lying
so
to
bleak.
herself, lying to the world. Like,
yeah.
She was living out somebody else's truth, and we were living vicariously through her.
Yeah.
Like twice removed. Yeah.
It was like the worst divorce ever, or like some terrible, like, just awfulness, man.
I mean, I think this is 100 times worse than a divorce. Honestly, like this is probably
all of humanity were the children. The situation.
I mean, that one decision Joel made at the end of the last game had countless
series of video games.
Yeah, countless ramifications that honestly that colored every inch of this game, and that's how you know that this is good narrative design, like everything is connected back to that moment,
Right. What was never confusing to me was who was coming after him. I was like, well, it clearly has to be the Fireflies, right? Like what was amazing was Abby's personal connection to it. That was super well done. You know, like because it just kind of sounded like, the Fireflies are coming after Joel, duh, But they just made it really compounded on it so much better than that. And
and even when we started Abby's flashback and got to her like helping the zebra with her dad or whatever, I still didn't make the connection. And then they zoomed out, it was the hospital. And then you saw he was the dad. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
I know. That was powerful moments in the game, for sure.
I need to walk around, Jesus.
But yeah, I think we've said so much about this game, and I think before we wrap up, we have to mention one last thing, and that is even after the game is over, it's wrecking you emotionally. And I'm referring to the credits, the cover of Wayfaring Stranger that plays. And it starts with Ellie, and then
there's live footage of her on YouTube playing it live.
Oh no, I have to see that. But Ellie's singing, and then she says a line, "I'm going there to see my father," and then from that verse, Joel picks up,
and
then his line, is "I'm going there to see my savior," and just
like, what is wrong with you? What is your problem? You want to hurt me?
I'm hurting myself saying this. Like I was just sitting there, like I was emotionally recovered from completing the game almost, like because that's the very last. I was. I wasn't, but like that song is the last plays over the last bit of the credits. So if you skip over the credits, you could miss this song entirely. So this song only comes on after like most of the credits have rolled, and this song happens, and it just gets you again, and you're just bawling, watching a black screen with white text slowly float over. Like
yet another little weird Easter egg that you have to find, like a really tender moment in the game.
But that's the thing, like with this game, like I had no issues not finding things because I have so much trust in Naughty Dog at this point. Like I knew, like the more I soaked this game in, the greater the reward would be. The greater the emotions, the greater the Easter eggs. Like I can't think of a better 31-hour stretch with a piece of media than I've had with this game. Like, and again, it took me 31 hours to beat this game. That's a long game, and every minute, every second of it was worth it, I think.
Speaking of like every minute, every second, I know you want to wrap, but like both of you guys, I think we should all just say like, what are your favorite moments of the game?
Really quick, I will say we could do this for another 5 hours if you want. I really don't care. But my favorite moment of the game. Why are you asking me this?
Yeah, baby. You're picking up winter.
It's your own medicine.
It's your fault. How dare you?
I mean, my favorite moment probably has to be that cutscene with Ellie and Joel at the end on the porch, where Ellie says, "I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'd like to try," and Joel cries and says, "I'd like that," and we get that beautiful line of him saying he'd do it all over again. Like it's just like making me want to sob just thinking about it. Like, but that was probably my favorite moment from the game. But like actual gameplay, I think it was probably playing as Abby and Lev. Like just going through like all of those harrowing situations as Abby and Lev forming their bond together and like forming such a strong bond that that they're going to be, essentially surrogate brother and sister for life. Like they have the same bond that Joel and Ellie did. Like the things they went through will make sure they're there for each other in the future. So just playing through that was really rewarding, I think. And I have to give a shout out to, I think, Seattle as well. Like as soon as you get to Seattle and how it's just open like that, I think that's really cool because like for the past couple games now, Naughty Dogs has been including like a wide linear section in their games. Like Uncharted 4 did it with Madagascar.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you guys played Uncharted The Lost Legacy, but they did it in that game too. And now The Last of Us Part 2, Seattle, just open area. And like there's so many little cool things you could do and find there. And obviously the Take On Me scene, which is one of the most beautiful scenes in the game, is there as a completely missable thing if you don't explore Seattle. So I think the whole Seattle section was really cool. Honestly, I just love this game so much. I love it top to bottom, every inch of it. Like I can't. It's so hard to pick a favorite moment. But yeah, why don't you give yours, Brandon?
Okay. I think when you're talking about gameplay and in terms of Abby and Lev, the Seraphite Village scene, like one of the last ones that you play, so cool. Like that was just so much fun. As far as like the moments, I mean, when Joel first plays the song, it obviously breaks my heart. I think that's probably one of everyone's favorite things.
Yeah.
But what really got me too was the moment where Ellie kind of realizes how dark she can get, where she tortures Nora to death with a metal beam while she's already infected just to get information out of her. God. And then immediately after that, it shows you that she actually knows what Joel did all along. Because up until that point, you're not really sure. Yeah. Like you think
you're right. Yeah.
But it just reveals that she knew and was still going on this rampage with like no ounce of empathy for people that killed the guy that sacrificed mankind, because it's that personal for her. Because like not only was Joel taken from her, but their potential relationship after they made up. And there's just like so much emptiness out of that was like a huge moment for me. What about you, Marshall?
Oh my god. Well, I think gameplay wise, like, it's hard to pick, but I think favorite moment for me is actually right before we get the flashback of Joel at the end on the porch, because that's like, of course, that's like the best. But it's the scene where Ellie is strangling her Abby underwater. Because honestly, I'm not sure if I was screaming at the TV or not. I don't remember. I may have been like, "No, stop it! No, why?" I don't know what's happening to my body at that moment. But it was so emotionally just like everything was elevated. Heart rate was elevated. Drama was elevated. It was the perfect culmination of every facet of my psyche being stimulated. It was insane. That was fantastic. I think gameplay wise, speaking of the Seraphied Village, just because I was so worn out from the violence, which so gruesome and graphic, it was really gross. Gross.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm going with. Gross. I think when you're fighting in the Seraphied Village, I mean, that whole horse sequence is so cool. But at the end, before you get to the boat, you're fighting that hulking dude, and you're Abby, and you have a scythe, and you cut his face, and his face is hanging open. I remember I'm like, this guy won't die, he won't quit. And I remember playing, and I was like, this world is not gonna quit. And then he tackles you, and you fall off the side, and you think he's dead, and then you get up, and you're fighting on the sand again, and I'm like, nothing is going to end. And one of those moments where you just feel insane, I really love that. It resonated with me. Thank God that guy died because he was psycho. But just that tiresome coming back, playing that, I love that.
I think the word you're looking for is relentless.
Relentless.
This game is relentless. Yeah.
It is.
And then
I was just saying, when Neil Druckmann said that he had the cycle of violence in mind when he was making this game, they illustrate that in literally every single fight, like what you're saying. That guy just keeps coming back, Jesus. Every situation is like that. It's relentless, yeah.
When you're fighting Abby, and I mean before you strangle her, which is my favorite moment, but not I'm sick. But
yeah.
You're fighting her. It was I remember playing Red Dead 2, if you get the good ending, and you're fighting Micah, you're on the mountain, and it's a fist fight that just won't end. And you're like, dude, can we just get to the cutscene? You're I don't want to do this. You have a knife, Abby doesn't. You're clear, even though Abby's much thinner, you're still Ellie, who's a thin, wily, but thin. And you're cutting her, you're punching her. There's no HUD, there's no health meter, and you're just slugging. And I've sparred before, so I know what that's like to be tired and be getting rocked or rocking somebody. And I was like, this is too real. This is too real. This is too sad. This is too much. Relentless. Perfect.
And I just love the narrative choice that the Abby and Ellie confrontations don't happen until you've played as both of them for 10 hours, until you are so connected to both of them that you're going to have an existential crisis whenever these two meet and fight. And I did. Those two sections were nigh unplayable to me, like I said earlier in this discussion. But those two encounters, some of the most tense feelings I have felt while interacting with a piece of media.
100% agreed.
How am I going to, after this is done, how am I going to sleep peacefully now? What am I going to do?
Don't sleep. Just play more of the game.
Just restart it.
And that's another thing. So I did restart it, right? I'm still, I mentioned this to Brandon earlier. I restarted it, and I'm still in Jackson, and I don't want to leave Jackson because I know as soon as I leave Jackson, horrible things are going to happen to everyone, So I'm just sort of soaking in the peaceful atmosphere while I can.
Yeah. I mean, technically, while you're in Jackson, bad things are happening.
Right. Yeah. But for the very first, hour or two, you're fine. Right. But the thing is, I think this game definitely deserves at least a second playthrough because so much context is added over the course of the game, especially through Abby's storyline, obviously.
Who's a contender for Game of the Year outside of this? A serious contender?
I think the only other serious contender is coming out later this year, and it's a game that's had lots of hype, right? Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh, wow.
But there is no way on God's green earth that I could possibly see that game being better than this. Like, I don't care if it's like the most mind-blowing open world ever made. Like,
yeah.
For me, okay, so I think what I just need to put this out there. I know a lot of people will disagree with this because gameplay should be at the forefront, obviously, for a video game. And I agree with that, but I think I'm someone who loves a good story more than anything. Like, regardless of what medium I get it in, a good story to me means so much. It means characters I can love and empathize with. It means a world I can live in. It means something to talk about, like a story, like stories are so powerful, a tale that you can live through, something like that has to be there for me to really attach myself to something, and The Last of Us 2 has one of the best stories I've ever experienced, and because of that, even if, for instance, the open world and Cyberpunk is amazing, or like something comes out and just has sublime gameplay, I don't really see that pushing it over the edge unless it has a story that can go toe to toe with this, and I don't see that happening.
Agreed, dude. Agreed. And there's also something, I think Cyberpunk 2077 is supposed to be first person, and which is cool. Like, nothing against first person games. I would much prefer something like The Last of Us, where each character is their own person. Like, you're not even projecting yourself onto that character. That character is just that character, and like you're with them for the ride. You know what I mean? Like that's some other level stuff for me. I'm already to the part where Abby is like fighting the Seraphites on my second play.
What?
I know.
You need help, Brandon.
I think I need a job.
No, but I think that's like, I told you, right, Marshall, like, I told you I'm thinking about playing it again, right? And then you, who just came off of beating it, you're like, you're a psycho. Like, how could you even want to do that right now? And then after a few days, after you get to process a little bit, you text me and you're like, yeah, I think I want to play it again. With The Last of Us 1, right? Like, I played that game, beat it. It was an extraordinary experience. I didn't touch it again for several years.
Yeah.
Personally, I didn't. Like, it was a one and done thing for me. And I expected this game would be the same, and obviously the first day or two after I beat it, I felt that way, but like, there's just too much, and I can't get it out of my head. This is like 80% of what I think about all the time currently, like, it's still just, I keep replaying moments in my head and thinking about the story.
You're in a room and you're like, I guess I have to hit triangle to pick up everything in this room. Real life, and real life doesn't allow hitting triangle to pick stuff up.
Yeah. Oh, what a game. What an experience, honestly. Thank you, Naughty Dog. Thank you, Neil Druckmann. Thank you, Haley Gross. Thank you, everyone who worked on this game, for such a special experience from the bottom of my heart.
Mine, too. Or what's left of my heart.
What's left after you brutally stabbed it.
I don't even know if there's a heart
ripped
left.
It out.
It's like an empty apartment.
Exactly.
Studio.
All right. Any last thoughts? Get them out now, or forever hold your peace.
I think there needs to be DLC with Ish. He needs to come back.
Ish needs to come back.
Come back. I'm calling it now. He's coming back.
No.
Something lighthearted. Please. Please.
Never.
That's it. I have nothing else to say. I'm in a bad place now, man. I'm messed up.
I'm sorry.
On the mind.
All right. All right, guys. I think that'll do it for us this week. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you again, Marshall and Brandon, for coming on and talking about this wonderful, wonderful game. You like what you hear, you can get more of us at any podcast service you use. Please like, rate, and review us there. Please click the link of the description of this podcast to join our Discord and chat with us there. And lastly, please follow us at @PodcastGameTalk on Twitter. And I'm just gonna go sulk thinking about this game.
Three of us.
All right, thank you.
This is fun.
No, thank you guys. This was great. See ya.
See ya.